You're listening to theoutdoorstation.co.uk.
It's a podcast. It's a magazine.
No, it's a podzine.
That's the biggest round of applause I've ever had. Thank you very much. Just to say, thanks Vanessa, Ordnance Survey. It did actually happen after our birthday, out of the foot and mouth. It is fantastic, and as a sports minister, I support these activities as much as we do the football, the cricket and the tennis. This is very, very important to getting Britain active. The great outdoors is there for everybody. It gives me great pleasure in opening the 6th Ordnance Survey Outdoors Exhibition.
And with that, Richard Caborn MP, Minister for Sport, kicked off the Outdoor Show 2007. I began this series of special podcast reports from the Outdoor Show by asking the Minister, did he think as a nation we'd really given enough priority to the great outdoors?
I think probably not, but I think what it does show, coming to a show like this, there's a tremendous appetite out there for it. There's been over 50,000 people are going to come to this show over the next few days. And, you know, it was actually born out of adversity, out of foot and mouth, where many of the organisations here, like the YHA and others, were under tremendous pressure, and indeed some of them looked like folding. What's really pleasing is they did survive, and now they've repositioned themselves, modernised themselves, and I think it's up to people like myself and others to start promoting the great outdoors in a probably more proactive way than we've done before. So I think you're right to ask that question, and I'm hoping that many of us will pick it up, particularly as we see shows like this and the great appetite there is for the great outdoors.
Now, when we hear such a lot at the moment about obesity and worries about the next generation, it's important to get youngsters going early, isn't it, in the outdoors? What are the initiatives that are being thought about and planned at the moment? Well,
I think obviously what we're doing in schools, in trying to change the culture of the nation, that's where you start. You start in schools with young people. 2 hours of quality physical activity and sport for every child, every week. From the age of 5 to 16. So that's a start, and only a start. But I think what we're looking at here is how do we get those young people to at least be introduced to the great outdoors, and I think we've got to do more in schools to promote that. We've had difficulties, to be honest. We are a very risk-averse nation, and we see what's happened when some young people have gone out and gone into difficulties. But my view is that we actually have gain a tremendous amount from school trips for young people going out to the countryside. Yes, health and safety has got to be our priority, but it should not be the cause for not taking young people out to the countryside. And I think that's an area we need to pay more attention to.
OK, well, I hope you're going to be championing the great outdoors. I know you've got to go off and do all those things that ministers have to do now. Thanks for spending the time.
OK, thank you very much as well.
One of the busiest stands always at the outdoor show is the Paramo stand, and Paramo, of course, are very famous for their full weather protection gear. But I've got Catherine Whitehead with me at the moment, and she's going to talk to us a bit about some of Paramo's new developments and new ranges.
Yeah, in addition to all the waterproofs that we're famous for, we do have what we call our Trek and Travel range, made with the fabric Parameter A, which is a really ultra cool silky fabric that really spreads perspiration. We do short sleeve and long sleeve shirts, and we do vented and unvented travel trousers, both for ladies with a specific ladies cut and for gentlemen.
The summer range is I've used it before, and it's very, very cooling. What makes the difference with this Parameter A material?
Again, Paramo is famous for using the knit wax directional textiles, and that's what makes the difference, really. The Parameter A spreads perspiration really quickly. It wicks it. It holds on to it enough to keep you cool. That's the difference, I think. And it spreads it about the body so you don't get any pooling under the arms or in the middle of your back. And the result is something that's very cool. However, it is also windproof, so it means that if you're in a dry, windy situation, you won't get dehydrated as quickly because it won't actually get through to your skin, the wind, and it'll keep the insects out as well, which is the other benefit because it's a very dense fabric. It means it helps you to guard against being bitten by midges, mozzies, whatever.
And this business about perspiration, trapping perspiration is important to keep you cool, isn't it?
Yeah, people do come into us and say, I want something that won't make me sweat, which in fact is a contradiction, really, because if you're not sweating, it means you will often not be comfortable, because the sweat obviously helps cool you down, the perspiration. And what is important is to actually use that sweat, to move it away from you, to spread it about your body, so that you don't actually get cold once you stop moving or move into a different climate.
Okay, now you've got a new range of trousers and very fine T-shirts, haven't we? Can we have a look at those?
These are the ladies' trousers, the Azuma trousers. You've come with a vent at the thigh. They're articulated, very simple trouser actually, which is what you need obviously when you're out on the trekking trail. We also produce the T-shirts, which are made with a reversible fabric. This is Parameter T reversible, incredibly light and silky. You can wash them when you're on the road, and they'll dry out very quickly indeed.
Yeah, I've used those, and the reversible features work well. Going back to these trousers, the fabric feels absolutely gorgeous. It's a much more comfortable touch than many lightweight trekking trousers.
Yes, it's not at all scratchy, is it? It just it feels smooth and silky against the skin, and it's just very easy to wear. You hardly know you're wearing them.
Now, Paramo's trousers in the past always used to have this very long zip down the sides, which I found a bit off-putting, but this is a very different style. This is a thigh zip with some mesh inside, and these are very light trousers, aren't they?
Yeah, very lightweight indeed. Easy to put in your pack. Will weigh in, make very little difference on the scales when you're actually travelling abroad, which is so crucial these days, isn't it, wherever you're going.
I think I'll go for those simply on the weight, and the fabric really is gorgeous to the touch. It's very, very comfortable, I guess. And what else have we got to look at?
What we were very conscious of, if you do stop when you're on your travels, whether it's winter, summer or what it is, and you do stop and you've got a waterproof garment on, but you stop to have lunch or whatever, people can really cool down very quickly then once you're not moving. And what we've produced, instead of having to, in conventional systems, you had to take your jacket off, put another fleece on, because otherwise you wouldn't be waterproof, put the jacket back on. Meanwhile, you're losing all that lovely heat you've generated. So what we've got is what we call the overlayer. This Torres smock, very simple garment made with synthetic insulation, so it works even when it's humid and wet, and it's got a simple pocket on it, simple cuff, very silky smooth lining, so it just pulls on over the top of your waterproof to keep you both warm as well as dry.
Okay, and there's a gilet version of that as well, isn't there?
There is.
Which looks as if it would be perfect for the lightweight hikers. We've got one of these just here. Again, it's quite a lightweight jacket, but looks as if it's built to a high standard. It looks durable.
That's one of our real hallmarks is that durability of the outside fabric, which will really last rigorous use, to be honest. Also, this is nice because it actually folds down into its own pocket, so you've got a kind of ready-made little pouch for it to sit in your pack. And of course, being synthetic insulation and being so durable with no membranes or anything, it's not going to spoil if you do scrumble it up and put it in your rucksack for the day. It won't damage it at all.
Okay, and these are sized so that you just slip them on over your normal jacket. So we've got an extra large here, and that is sized so that you just slip it on over an extra large full jacket, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, particularly so with the smock. That is sized to fit perfectly over your jacket. The gilets are actually sized more normally, if you like, so you would wear one perhaps with a reversible shirt or whatever, whichever is your preference. So you'd need to try that on to see the best size for you.
Okay, and what else have you got to show us? Anything else?
I'd like to show you the Velez Adventure.
I have, for many years, I've been using a Velez jacket, which I reckon is one of the great bargains of the outdoor world. But this has been updated for 2007, isn't it?
Yeah, very simple updating. Literally, we've fixed a hood on it. Something we've been asked a lot. We actually have a number of adventure racers and those sorts of people who use this for events. And for them, I mean, one of them, Team Aberdeen, are the British adventure racing champions. They use the Velez a lot during the last year, and one of the things they would have liked would have been a fixed hood, because a lot of events require that you have head covering attached to your jacket. Somewhere like the 10 Tours, they would want it as well if you were going to do that. And also if you're using it for alpinism, hill walking, you want head cover at all times. So it now simply has a fixed hood on the back, and we've coloured it up slightly differently so that you can tell the difference. What is interesting is that this autumn we're actually bringing out a lady-specific cut of this as well. So we haven't got it yet, but come this autumn, it'll be a lady. It'll fit a lady beautifully as well.
There will be lots of people waiting for that, I think. Anything else?
Also this summer, for the ladies particularly, we've called it the Year of the Woman actually at Paramo, because we've done an awful lot. We've got the reversible shirts. We've made 2 new specific ladies shirts. The Men's Explorer has always been a huge favourite, and we've now got a ladies version of it, which is called the Challenger, and the Men's Active shirt has always again been a big favourite. It's a short-sleeved one in reversible fabric. There's now a ladies version called the Kaluna, and in the autumn we'll be having high mountain stuff as well for ladies, so really we'll be catering for the ladies.
One of the interesting themes, I think, that you're picking up over certainly the last year and very strong this year is the number of particular gear ranges that be designed for women now. Is that because women are beginning to assert themselves a bit more, or are more women getting out onto the hills?
There's definitely more women getting out on the hills in all ways, all walks of the outdoors, if you like. There's women who are actually instructors, more of them, women working outdoors. We do a lot with outdoor employers, whether it's English Nature or Western Power Distribution or the Forestry Commission, and in all of those walks of life you're getting more women out there. But just generally, women asserting themselves more and wanting something that's made for them, with real hips in it, and allowing for the body shape and the physiological differences.
Well, it's good to see a British company at the forefront of designing for women. The Paramo stand is getting busier and busier as I speak, so I think I'd better leave you to it and get back to selling some gear.
Great, nice to speak to you, Andy.
Thank you. Now, we're always on the lookout for new and exciting places to walk, and particularly those that are reasonably easy to get to. And certainly last year I picked up a book about walking in Croatia that looked quite exciting. And I've got with me Rudolph Abraham, the author of Walking in Croatia, who's also just about to produce later on this year a book on walking in Montenegro. Rudolph, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Croatia looks a fascinating new walking destination because it has a mixture of inland walking and high walking and what looks like some stunning coastal paths. I mean, just take us through the variety of what's on offer there.
Well, there's quite a difference between the walks on the mountains along the coast, the Dinaric Alps, which are probably the most impressive areas. Inland tends to be a lot flatter in Slavonia, and then there are the islands as well, a few of which have got nice little hilly areas on. The Bosnian border as well is quite mountainous. In fact, that's the highest area, but it's mined in quite a few areas, so it's not an area that I encourage people to go to.
Now, I think let's talk about that recent history early on, because when we think about where these countries were, I guess, 15, 20 years ago, I mean, there's been a remarkable recovery, hasn't there, in terms of the economies. Tourism is quite important for them, I guess. But these are safe areas to walk.
Yeah, they're very, very safe. In Croatia, there's only one area in all of the coastal ranges, the southern end of a mountain called Velebit, which has had some landmine deployment on one side of it, but it's there's no reason to walk over that side, and it's well known that it's out of bounds. And there's been quite a big landmine clearance program over the past few years. So the rest of the country is as safe as most other places you're going in.
Okay, so first-time visitor to Croatia. Where would you go? Where would you look to doing perhaps your first walk in Croatia?
The nicest area, so if someone's only got a chance to do one walk in particular, is the northern end of Velebit. So if you imagine all along the coast, there's a ridge of mountains, if you like, slightly inland from the coast, going from Slovenia in the north, called the Dinaric Alps. They go right down the length of Croatia, almost unbroken, down into Montenegro, right through Montenegro and Albania into northern Greece. A point inland from a city called Zadar, and north of there is called Velebit, and that's probably particularly the northern end of it, the most impressive mountain area in Croatia. Very, very impressive limestone formations, some gorges at the southern end. You can do day walks from a hut. It's only a few hours walk up from the coast. Very nice in winter as well.
Well, that's quite handy to have that, and presumably there's a good walking infrastructure. You mentioned mountain huts there. We've got a chain of huts in the area?
Yeah, there are mountain huts all over Croatia. Some of them are open all year and staffed. Some of them are open by arrangement, where you have to get a key from someone. But in the most cases, they're mountain huts open all year, certainly during the summer walking season. Even when they close up in the winter, part of them remains open as a sort of alpine shelter, which you can go to at any time of year.
And what degree of difficulty would we come across walking in the Croatian Alps?
From very, very easy, in the lower areas and on the islands, for example, to fairly long distance treks. You can do a walk the length of Velebit from the northwest to the southeast, which would take 10 days, a good 10 days to do. There's some peaks require a bit of scrambling. Then the southern end of this area that I'm talking about, Velebit, is well known as a climbing centre. There are a lot of climbing walls there.
And so Velebit's in the book, isn't it? Walking in Croatia, I think, and that would fit nicely into a fortnight's holiday for somebody who was thinking of doing that. Yes,
yeah, it's in the book, split up into different sections, or you can, as I say, walk the whole thing as a single route.
Now, what time of the year is best to do this? I mean, in the summer it gets pretty hot, I guess.
Yes, depends which area you go to. The southern part of the coastal mountains, say inland from Split, there are some very nice mountains there. One called Mosor, one a bit further south inland from Makarska, called Biokovo, which are lovely, but in the middle of the summer they're just almost unbearably hot, and because it's limestone, the karst landscape, there's almost no water. So spring, early summer or autumn is better for those, whereas high Velebit, you can walk through the middle of the summer. As I said, winter walking there is very, very nice. It's much more accessible than the Alps, even the Slovenian Alps in winter.
Okay, so it's an all year around walking location, which is good for those of us that don't necessarily want to do everything in the summer months. But if we want to walk in the summer, it's really good to go up into those high mountains.
Yeah.
Now, Montenegro you mentioned just a few moments ago, and that's the subject of your next book, which I think is being published in the autumn. And you said to me earlier it's a little bit more exciting in terms of high mountains. So what can we expect in Montenegro?
Well, the book's actually finished. It should come out in a couple of months. If you compare it to Croatia, where you've got these mountains that you can see from the coast, which are slightly lower than the ones in Montenegro as well, and you've got the islands. Montenegro has a similar ridge range of mountains along the coast, then a basin where the capital is and where Lake Skadar is and goes into Albania. And then progressively it gets higher beyond that, and it's much more rugged, higher, alpine, less developed. Developed is the wrong word, because Croatia isn't particularly developed for mountaineering either. But there are fewer huts in Montenegro. There are only a small handful of mountain huts that you can expect to rely on. There are other ones, again, which you need to arrange a key to get. You should really go to Montenegro with a tent, ideally.
So, well, that appeals to a lot of people, doesn't it? I mean, I know the Pyrenees is very popular simply because of the wild camping there is much easier. So this is ideal terrain for somebody who wants to do a longer distance trek, camping as they go.
Yes. Again, in terms of how long walks work out in Montenegro, you've got things which you can do in a day. There are some treks which last, say, 2 to 4 days, and quite a few of those you can join up into a very long point-to-point route, which is called the CT1 in Montenegro. It takes at least 10, 12 days to walk the whole. In fact, that's not the whole length of it, but the bit that's well marked.
That will give us a good 2-week excursion.
Yeah, and leaves time for the mountains close to the coast or looking at some of the historical sites.
Yeah, because one of the things that both Croatia and Montenegro enable us to do, I guess, is to mix a bit of walking with something that's a bit more cultural, because the towns are very historic. They're just opening up for business again. There's a lot of history to look at as well.
Yeah, there are some beautiful towns, particularly on the coast. I mean, everyone seems to have heard of Dubrovnik in Croatia these days. Other towns on the Croatian coast, like Korčula on one of the islands, is incredibly beautiful, and Kotor in Montenegro is a really lovely looking town. You can actually walk from that town all the way up to one of the mountains on the coast, Lovćen, or you can sort of start from inland and just walk up to the summit and down.
Before the wars broke out, I mean, there was quite a well-developed tourist industry, wasn't there, in Croatia and elsewhere? I guess the legacy of that must still live on. So if you thinking about it as a destination, is it getting easier to get there? It's reasonably easy to get from the airports and towns up into the hills? Yeah,
it's extremely easy. I mean, to get to either country for a start is no more difficult than going to Italy. To get from the towns to villages and trailheads in the mountains, there's a very good public transport service. So easily as reliable, if not more so than the one here. The trains run on time. There's a good ferry network on the Croatian coast. The few places, for example, in Montenegro that you can't get to using a local bus, you can get a taxi, and it works out very, very little to go up to the end of an unsealed road in the mountains where you're going to start walking from.
And we shouldn't have to worry too much about language or access. These are countries that have got that tourism legacy and are desperately hoping to attract more foreign tourists, I guess. Yes,
language on the coast, because there used to be a lot of, or for a long time there have been a lot of particularly German and Italian tourists going there. You'll find menus in restaurants on the Croatian coast where the menu is in Croatian, German and Italian, but more recently English has been included in that. If you go up into the mountains in either country, you're less likely to find anyone speaking English than in a city on the coast. Although, having said that, if you go and stay in a mountain hut, there are going to be a lot of local walkers and climbers there whose English is probably, in most cases, is extremely good. So,
and in every mountain area, you get that kind of wonderful hospitality, don't you? That kind of camaraderie of the mountains.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And I should probably mention trails as well. As well as there being this network of mountain huts, there are some very, very well marked. All of the mountain trails are clearly marked with paint splashes, so it's
the kind of system we see right through Europe, really.
Yes, it is.
Okay, and getting to Croatia and getting to Montenegro is getting easier again, I guess.
Yeah, there are more and more budget airlines now flying to the Croatian coast. So British Airways actually stopped flying to Zagreb a few years ago and started flying to the coast instead, to Split and Dubrovnik. But it's very easy to get there. Montenegro, if you fly to the capital, to Podgorica, it's actually a bit more of it actually works out a longer trip, because it's usually not a direct flight from London. It's via somewhere else, either via Frankfurt, almost certainly via Belgrade as well. And the best way at the moment to get to Montenegro is just fly to Dubrovnik in Croatia, and either get the daily bus over the border or get a taxi to the border or over the border.
Okay.
That's the way I always go.
So Croatia has got the infrastructure, Montenegro, maybe a bit more adventure to it, perhaps, in that sense. But certainly both countries that we should look to as good alternatives to somewhere like the Alps or the Pyrenees.
Yes, and Montenegro, with its recent independence, very recent, it's obviously trying to push tourism, and since the mountains are such a defining characteristic of the country, the name Montenegro actually means Black Mountain. The tourist Ministry of Tourism are really trying to push the mountaineering potential of the country. Croatia, the Ministry of Tourism, have always pushed the coast and almost never mentioned the potential for mountain walking there, which was one of the reasons when I was living in Croatia that I started thinking about writing a guidebook, partly because it wasn't being promoted by the Ministry of Tourism there, partly because people were coming in ever-increasing numbers to the coast but not seeing anything else, partly because in journalism at the time, possibly still, there's a sort of the emphasis was on the economy, how it was recovering, and on the legacy of the war. And that's usually, actually, as we did today, the first thing that gets talked about. Whereas it's very easy to. There's another side to the country which is not looked at or not talked about as well.
Well, so this is a great opportunity to discover somewhere new and trailblaze a bit and help rebuild those economies, both in terms of the towns and the rural economies. So it's a good thing to do all round. Now, certainly, I've got the Walking in Croatia book, and it's quite comprehensive. You'd be able to easily plan any walk from that, I guess, that you wanted to do in the country. So I guess the Montenegro book's going to be just as comprehensive. They sell for about how much?
About £12. I think Montenegro one is going to be £12.95.
Okay, and they make a great alternative holiday for a 2 or 3 week break, maybe in the high summer in the high mountains, or earlier or later in the year elsewhere. So thanks very much for that, Rudolph, and it's always good to hear about new areas and new venues we can go to, and I look forward to the new book coming out.
Thank you.
Well, that just about wraps up this first report from the Outdoor Show 2007. Stay tuned for 30 years of Harvey's Maps, news from Kev Reynolds, Paddy Dillon and Ronald Turnbull, details of Rab's new gear range for 2007, and much, much more. You've been listening to the Podzine on the Outdoor Station. I'm Andy Howell. Until next time, take care and happy hiking.
This independent programme is produced and hosted by theoutdoorstation.co.uk. Find out how easy it is to subscribe to all our free programmes. Visit our website at theoutdoorstation.co.uk.